Hi everyone. We're presenting on Holland's theory of types, and we'll just kind of get started here. So a little overview. The theory is based on four basic assumptions. So first, that in our culture, most people are categorized in one of these six types he describes. These are realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. The second basic assumption is that there are several kinds of environments. Again, there's the same list there. The RIASAC is the abbreviation acronym. Third is that people search for environments that will let them exercise their skills and abilities, express their attitudes and values, and take on agreeable problems and roles. And fourth, that a person's behavior is determined by an interaction between their personality and the characteristics of their environment. So also important to understand Holland's typology. Essentially, it states that personality types are both genetically and environmentally based. So Holland explains that career interests are an expression of an individual's personality, and that personality traits are identified by a person's choice of leisure activities, school subjects, applicational interests, and work. So everyone conforms to one or more of these six types, according to Holland in this theory. We can go to the next slide. So a little background on John Holland himself. So he is a prominent figure in vocational psychology. He was a professor of sociology at Johns Hopkins University, and his theory just kind of describes how people are drawn to careers that match their personality type. It has a huge impact on career guidance and counseling, and just offers a helpful framework for helping people find careers that are suitable for them and their personality type. Can go to the next slide. Okay, so a little more history. Here's just a quote I found in an article I came across more on the history of John Holland and kind of how he developed his theory. I thought this was kind of some cool backstory there, but he considered becoming a musician. He considered a career in life sciences. He was in the army for a while before he did settle on psychology. And as he processed the soldiers' biographical information as a representative of few personality types. So that's kind of where the beginning of what would become his theory of vocational personalities first kind of latched on. This theory of vocational personalities and work environments was developed to describe, understand, and predict the vocational choices people make, including fields of study, occupations, and successive jobs, and other choices involving environments. We can go to the next slide. Now I will delve into the six personality types that he describes. First, we have the realistic type. This type involves, this is a person who prefers activities that are more explicit, ordered, systemic, kind of manipulation of objects, tools, and machines. They have more mechanical abilities, but might lack some social skills. So realistic types might prefer jobs like an automobile mechanic or farmer or electrician, something like that. Next, we have investigative type. This is the type of person who prefers activities that are more observational, more symbolic, systemic, or creative. They have an aversion more to social or persuasive or repetitive activities. They tend to lean on acquiring scientific and mathematical competencies over other. And then the artistic type is someone who prefers more of like an ambiguous, free, unsystemized selection of activities. They have an aversion to explicit systemic order activities. So there's just kind of that opposite type there. The social type, just like it sounds, it's more people that enjoy kind of activities involving other people. They tend to acquire human relation competencies and like educational skills, and they might have more of a deficit in mechanical or scientific ability. Fifth is the enterprising type. These are people who prefer activities with more attain to organizational or economic gain. They tend to acquire positions of leadership or interpersonal or persuasive competencies, and might have another type here who might have a deficit in scientific ability. And finally, the conventional type, they prefer activities that are more ordered, systemic, and manipulating data, like record keeping, filing, things like that. And they might have an aversion, or they will have an aversion more to ambiguous, free, kind of exploratory activities, more like the artistic type would enjoy. So that's a little bit on the six personality types.
And so going to some of the key pieces of like key constructs within this theory, Holland had four variables that he saw to be very important in like influencing those types, and that would be congruence, differentiation, consistency, and vocational identity. Congruence for Holland was the degree of fit between an individual's personality and current or prospective work environment. And what Holland found is that this level of congruence dictates the level of satisfaction that an individual has within their job, but also it indicates a better quality of performance that they are able to do when their work environment is congruent. And there was three, my apologies, three levels of relation that he kind of dictated when it comes to the relation of the type. And highest being that there's a direct relation, middle being like it's adjacent to their work environment is adjacent to their personality, and then lowest being that it's just completely opposite. Like somebody who's really, really artistic, working like in a very, very structured and like rigid environment. The second characteristic was differentiation and is the degree of distinctness among types in someone's personality profile. And there's the idea of like differentiated versus undifferentiated. And those who are differentiated are seen to have a greater like distinction between, uh, well, yes, between their personality types of their ISAC codes. And then consistency is the degree of relatedness within types. And so this is going to be related to like having a higher level of integration and harmony among like traits, interests, values, and their perceptions, and the fact that all of those things are consistent across the board. And with this, it allows for like predictability in the actions and the type of careers they're going to choose, but also indicates like the level of career achievement that is most likely within the career that they opt for. And then lastly, being the vocational identity. Um, Vocational identity is having a possession of a clear and stable picture of one's goals, interests, and talent. And it's dependent on acquiring sufficient occupational self-information. And over here in the corner, you can see it a little bit, but it's really tiny. Just giving you an example, like the hexagonal, uh, the way that all of the uh, personalities and what they use, like how they're related over there. Oh, yeah, how they're related. If you could go to the next slide. And so some of the ways that we go about addressing and finding these four different characteristics is through the assessments that Holland and his associates worked on. And the first one and the most like standardized one would be the self-directed search. And it's got an assessment booklet, an occupational finder, and it has an additional assessment called You and Your Career, which assesses kind of that consistency and congruence piece. And then there's three different types of assessments that Holland utilized, and it was specifically for either the reading level, setting, and language, so that it could be provided to like a broader array of people. Um, the second one would be the vocational preference inventory. It has 160 occupational titles. It utilizes the six Holland type scales, And then it has five supplemental scales going off of self control, masculinity, femininity, status and frequency, and acquiescence. And kind of the purpose of this is to build that awareness and understanding of oneself when applying and searching for jobs and what would best fit within their parameters. Um, Next one would be the My Vocational Situation assessment. This measures awareness of and ability to specify interests, personality characteristics, and goals. And additionally, there is a assessment that goes with this called the Occupational Information Scale. Um, the last one being the Position Classification Inventory. Um, this one is about classifying work environment according to Holland's typology. And so just understanding, like within your type, what is the environment that best suits you, and then understanding the degree of congruence within a specific job. Um, Next slide. So this is a quote quoted in the textbook. All things being equal, an individual with high identity who is congruent, consistent, and differentiated should be more predictable and better adjusted than one who is incongruent, inconsistent, and undifferentiated. So, of course, within this theory, everything starts with an assessment. So you go through the assessments with a client, and in doing that, you start exploration, and exploration, education, and action are the kind of the overview concept within like how this theory. It's not explicitly stated like this, but this is kind of how it flows throughout um, utilization. So in assessing, you find the Holland type, you find the summary code, the RISAC codes, and within that, you start that exploration of like, okay, what is my personality and how does it interact within the workforce and within a work environment, and how do I utilize that from job perspective? From there, usually it moves into the educate more like an education piece of evaluating that consistency, evaluating the level of differentiation that one has, and looking at how to direct um, the client within that. And an additional piece of that, looking at those constructs, is once again broadening and causing an expansion of self understanding. And once the assessment's been done, once you've looked through, like, where is my personality? What is the type of work environment that I would feel comfortable that best suits me? Then you would take the client into the action phase. And in the action phase, like you push the client to go into action, whether that is um, like job shadowing, whether that is just kind of researching the specific job they want to do. And they do that in narrowing like their perspective of what they want, and then moving into the implementation aspect of, okay, so I've kind of narrowed what I'm doing. Now I'm going to implement this by uh, going and volunteering or by looking for specific jobs. And then lastly, clarifying and just looking at, okay, now that I've narrowed down this, I've went and had these experiences, I'm going to clarify like the like exact type of job and environment that feels most congruent with who I am.
All right, so now we'll talk about the multicultural strengths and weaknesses. So the first strength is that it's applicable for many different cultures. It's widely used in various countries and has been adapted into different languages and cultural contexts, making it easy to apply across diverse populations. And so, no matter the culture, no matter the language, it can be adapted to fit with that culture or language. Um, Next is the framework. This theory provides a structured way for individuals from different backgrounds to explore careers that align with their personality, which can increase job satisfaction and success. Um, so throughout different cultures, we all have different goals and different aspirations, and careers that we want to go after to fit our personality. And so this works great with that. Um, and the last strength that I want to mention is the recognition of individual differences. So Holland's model acknowledges that people differ in their interests and preferred environments, which aligns with the value that many cultures place on individual uniqueness and the fit of a career. Some weaknesses, the cultural bias in career preferences. The rise that categories are based on Western individualistic perspectives on career choice and self-determination, and in collectivist cultures where family and societal expectations play a bigger role in career decisions, Holland's emphasis on these personal interests may not fully apply. Um, Second, there's a limited consideration of socioeconomic barriers. So this theory kind of assumes that individuals have the freedom to choose careers based on what they're interested in. However, a lot of individuals from marginalized communities face economic and system barriers that restrict those career choices. And lastly, there's an underrepresentation of non-Western values. So the model emphasizes personal fulfillment and individual job satisfaction, which again may not be the primary work motivation in cultures where job security, community service, or family obligations are more important. So not all cultures believe that you need to do a job you enjoy. You don't have to do something that you like or you want to do. That doesn't fit with every culture.
Need to unmute myself. Holland's theory. So the philosophy behind his theory is the person environment fit. It's his own philosophy. And from an integration standpoint, there's nothing specifically stated, uh, like explicitly stated from a faith perspective or a spirituality perspective. But from a spiritual bent, Holland's theory does, in many ways, align with many spiritual and faith aspects. His theory claims that each individual is unique and thus will fit into a specific work environment. And this kind of agrees with the Christian concept of being fearfully and wonderfully made. And the idea that, once again, each person is unique and like their own personality and stuff will come out and be like expressed within a specific environment. And additionally, Holland's theory does not make any specific claims about human morality and thus really doesn't have a comparative to sin and brokenness within it. However, it does speak some to depression and low self esteem in relation to like low differentiation, which speaks to the brokenness and healing that individuals sometimes need in seeking a new life for themselves. And speaks a little bit to like if clients are struggling with depression, like that idea of like them going and seeking help, which in a Christian perspective kind of resembles our the reality of us going to God the Father. And then additionally, like gifts versus types. I feel like this is a pretty easy deduction. But First Corinthians 12 and First Peter 4:10. Now there are different gifts, but the same Spirit. There are different ministries, but the same Lord. And there are different activities, but the same God works all of them in each person. A manifestation of the Spirit is given to each person for the common good. And I feel like this really reflects the idea of, each of us being expressed in the environment that we are like meant to be in, and God calling us to like be in specific places to minister with certain people. And First Peter 4:10 goes into the idea of any gift that we have being utilized for the good of those around us, not just kind of being like a dragon slayer and like hoarding the gold for ourselves, but it being utilized. And Holland's theory kind of points to that of like birds of a feather flock together, like by people coming together and like uniquely being in an environment where they can work together, like it it just demonstrates an aspect of like community growth and the way that these environments can build not up only the environment but also the people within.
So, in conclusion, Holland's theory of career choice emphasizes the alignment between an individual's personality and their work environment. By categorizing people and occupations into the 6 types, Holland's theory provides a framework for understanding career satisfaction and success. When individuals choose careers that match their personality traits and interests, they're more likely to experience fulfillment and productivity. This theory remains a valuable tool in career counseling, guiding individuals towards paths that align with their strengths and preferences. And here's our references.